All right, everyone, we start off today with a very interesting piece from CNN. This is archived link in the description, of course, insinuating that actually it wouldn't be historically abnormal if the GOP outperforms expectations during the midterms. Of course, there are some reasons that the GOP tends to have a midterm advantage and has for many, many cycles. If you take the expected under polling, that is generic congressional ballot, the coordination between presidential approval or lack thereof and various turnout, etc., etc. If you look at all of those indicators, you'd be looking at a situation where the GOP easily retakes the House, probably by a historical margin, easily retakes the Senate, not sure of the margin there. Everything is a little bit more in stasis, generally speaking, unless you get a real goddamn wipeout. Of course, not all the senators at one time are up for re-election anyway. Here's the thing. If you were to add to that an expectation that even all of those dire warnings for the Dems weren't as dire as the real picture and the GOP was going to pull off a few extra points across the board, I don't think that we've seen a political wipeout like that since probably half a century ago. I think you have to go back long before the modern period into the middle of the Cold War and actually to find a landslide that large. Again, you've had multiple situations where you have surge elections, especially midterms. The in-party does a lackluster job for the first couple of years of a presidency and then they get punished. You'd look at maybe the Tea Party revolution or whatever. It was significant. It was all anyone talked about for several months. This, I think, would be more. And the funniest part is that a lot of people, I think, and this won't be, by the way, necessarily wrong, will talk about it being the backlash against the party that was only focused on Trump. That is, the Democrats turned into the Trump derangement movement for 4 years, jettisoning every aspect of a platform, and that has hampered Biden from delivering a platform because really he can't get anything accomplished, especially since the Occupy leftoids have enough House Democrats, the Ilhan Omars and AOCs of the party, to stop any meaningful legislation by planting their head in the sand and pretending like everything will be fine, mainly because their own jobs are assured because they're from far blue districts. Just wait until you get a little bit older, Ilhan Omar. It'll be funny to see how the mighty fall. Keep in mind, by the way, before I continue, if you're watching this video on YouTube, there will be a pinned comment down below with links to other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind, I make exclusive content every day on those platforms that doesn't go on YouTube. By the way, again, tomorrow there will be a fairly major political announcement. It'll be something meme-worthy and fun. So stay tuned. Not just on YouTube, because of course, their algorithm randomly bans people and content. I guess, Sinatra says he got a live stream that he had set to private like a year ago, down for nudity. I checked the video because he had a second upload on BitChute, and there ain't no nudity in it. YouTube's algorithm misconstrued like a Sports Illustrated model as being naked because of the color of her bra, I think. And then they did a manual review and found the same thing, supposedly. So this is what we have to fucking deal with going forward, which is why you should definitely make yourself unsilenceable. Truth Social, by the way, having trouble at the moment keeping up with the new registrations of people. Apparently there's a waiting list that's like 6 figures long as far as the Apple store, and it'll be funny when Truth Social inevitably gets kicked off by Apple. That's a guaranteed event that will happen. It will occur probably fairly soon. I can't wait for the desktop experience. Trump, roll that out next for us Luddites. Here's the thing. There is no indicator. There's nothing within politics that you can analyze right now that would show you that the GOP won't be curb stomping the Dems during the midterms. Again, inflation, it's the economy, stupid. Presidential approval, it's strongly correlated with the eventual outcome. Turnout expectations based on the congressional ballot, based on the enthusiasm in party. All of these things go against the Democrats. You've had a massive demographic shift. You've had an enormous shift in actual registry, especially in certain vulnerable states like Florida. All of those things are negative for the Democrats. There is no positive news to give them. But even I'm going to hesitate to claim that despite that tidal wave of negativity, you can literally unleash the torrent, the fucking maelstrom of hell on the Democratic Party by having an even worse outcome. To be clear, all of those things combined already give them a historic loss. It would be legendary. It would be one of the biggest midterm wipeouts, certainly of modern U.S. political history, going back probably a half a century or more. It might even be the biggest wipeout of a sitting party. The Democrats will lose the House come the midterms, unless something monumental happens in the next few months, like Jesus comes out of the sky and says, actually, Biden's pretty cool, and or something like that. Even then, I don't know that it would save their party. Just to be clear, I don't think even that might help. You're looking at, I would say, a minimum 30 House seat switch. At a minimum. That's assuming that the GOP underperforms. I'm not expecting that either. Probably 40, 50 seats if they're on par, and that's, again, with things further moving against the Dems. Biden is about to do his first State of the Union, which will be delayed by several weeks beyond historical norms, by the way. He's not going to get a bump from that. The Dems are going to get hit over and over by inflation numbers, probably jobs numbers. Even jobs numbers that come in fairly decently haven't helped Joe Biden. Why would they help the Dems at large? They're jettisoning more and more people. More and more House members aren't seeking re-election. That's the other big disadvantage. It's almost 4-1 now. Retirements or people seeking some other office that are vacating their House seats and not running in the midterms. Incumbency may not matter as much there as it does in an executive position, but it still matters. That's tilting things against the Democrats as well. What positive news can you give them? I'm just saying I'm slightly pessimistic that the historic norm of even more disproportionate victory for the GOP will hold true at least to any significant degree, and I'll tell you why. Some of the markers that we see that are against the Dems, and this article doesn't really mention this, are not necessarily indicative of a massive switch from Dem to Republican or something. I think the registry advantage the Republicans now have is largely due to right-leaning independents that lean Republican in the first place. That means while you're definitely picking up new voters and you're restoring voters that are on the fence, true independents, and you might be eking out a few left independent voters who are simply now anti-Democrat and say, well, I have to vote for the lesser of two evils for the first time in 30 years as the GOP. They exist. I'm just saying I think 80-85% of those people leaned Republican to begin with. They're soft Republicans. They're not technically fully on partisan, but they leaned in that direction. Well, you pick up an advantage, but it's much more blunted than the story on the surface seems. That counterbalances, I think, this trend. I think the generic congressional ballot's a worse news for the Democrats. They're still behind by about 4 fucking points. Now, the GOP doesn't typically lead in the congressional generic ballot anyway, just due to the fact that there's fewer partisan Republicans in the country. Yeah, if you squeeze in the more soft, independent-leaning, right-leaning individuals, the Republicans have about as many people as the Democrats. But those people don't vote at the higher levels. The enthusiasm has to be higher, therefore, for the GOP. But it is. Enthusiasm's higher, registry advantage, congressional ballot, poor economy, sitting party with no platform, nothing they can run on, and a weak incumbent president. Everything's there. I'm going to hesitate, for now at least, for the coming months, unless I get more data, and very well could get it. I'm not going to predict the kind of bone-crushing, absolute goddamn near annihilation knockout that this would portend. If it happens, I'm happy. The Democrats have become the party of fascism. They're the party of, it seems, warmongering in East Europe at this point. Certainly the party of economic imbalance and the party of the super rich and powerful and of censorship and things like that. The Democrats have taken all the poisonous sides that they can on any issue that they could so that they resemble like Romney Republicans maybe 15 years ago. They've become poisonous as a political movement. They're also whining and dining socialism, which makes them somehow even worse. They do need to be massively punished. But even under my wildest dreams, I can't imagine them being punished this badly. Again, this would add a couple more points to an already disastrous field where you've got a massive hemorrhaging of incumbents and everything else is gone way against you, and there's really not, I think, enough time until midterms for even half of that damage to repair. If everything were to switch right now, inflation starts solving itself, jobs are roaring back, and the border gets clamped down on, and Biden somehow gets credit for diplomacy in Ukraine, which he might attempt, by the way, if Russia does not invade. if everything goes right, I would still expect the Democrats to lose control of the House. Not by nearly as much of a margin, but I don't think that there's anything at this point that they can do to counterbalance all of the negativity from the first 14 months of what has become known as one of the most disastrous administrations in U.S. history. Certainly the most disastrous, at least since Jimmy Carter on most measures. That's about all. Peace out.